Wake up, Buy Here Pay Here people. It's a beautiful day. Go grab yourself another cup of joe and say hello to Jim and Michelle Rhodes on the Buy Here Pay Here morning show. Take it away, you two.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning, friends. Welcome to the mountainside in New Mexico.
Mhm.
We snuck away for a little kind of spontaneous getaway.
Mm-hmm.
We just had a little bit of break in the calendar this week and said, let's just run to the mountains. We got a friend back in Oklahoma who's always offering his place, and we just finally took him up on the offer and ran up for a few days of fishing and recreation.
And just being in the woods, listening to the birds and all that.
Super nice. Yeah, it's been good for me to get back to an area that I'm quite familiar with. But yeah, anytime I can get where I can trout fish at sunset, have a chance to smell the pines and be amongst the aspens, that's good for the soul. So it's been what nice. This week has been all about. So happy that you're here with us. Got a couple of updates from our side, and then our topic for today is talking about trading customers, especially in a Lease Here Pay Here scenario. And that came up, Michelle, because of a conversation I had with a dealer who's adding Lease Here Pay Here. He's done Buy Here Pay Here for some time, and now he's adding Lease Here Pay Here
as a dual thing, or
a dual thing. Right. He's doing it at additional location. It has to do with the state sales tax, and so he's adding a new state, and so he's looking at Lease Here Pay Here for that state to help offset the heavy sales tax.
Yeah. So, well, we know that different states have different laws around when you pay the taxes on a sale. And
so it's going to be in a Lease Here Pay Here environment. The taxes are paid as you go. So that's what was really prompting the dealer to reach out and ask questions about that. And we were talking software and the various things about Lease Here Pay Here. And one of the topics was this thing about trading. And so we'll just dive into that. I think when we talk about an Lease Here Pay Here thing, I'll just kind of walk you through the conversation that I had with him. And keep in mind that my experience also includes several years of managing Lease Here Pay Here operation. And so we got quite good in the training and the sales process with that. And I think your opportunity, as far as it relates to what we're talking about here today, is that our opportunity in customer retention in leasing is really high. And it's about creating a process, like getting a system. Instead of just hoping the customer buys again, the Lease Here Pay Here environment sort of forces a conversation, which as a salesperson, or dealer who wants to retain those customers, then, that's why that becomes an important, element. And of course, a Buy Here Pay Here dealer could do the same. It's just that the structure of the Lease Here Pay Here deal really forces a conversation. It forces us into a place where we have to have a conversation with the customer because the lease term is coming to an end. We've got to decide what to do about that residual. And, you can tie in a related conversation that we had with some other dealers not long ago who are doing Lease Here Pay Here. And we were just kind of exploring that whole thing about lease to own. Do you give the customer the option to own when they get to that residual? How does that work? And so these all kind of sparked a conversation. I thought we just haven't talked about that in some time, and probably not in enough depth about why a customer would trade at this stage.
So why? Well, my first question is how important is it for someone to own their vehicle?
Okay.
So I think that trade-in is going to really depend on that because, some people are in the process of paying off debt and not have, they're looking at, I would really like to not have that car payment anymore. But there's going to be plenty that just want to know that they have a set amount that goes out every month and are willing to do that. And it really is, when we've talked about it, it's a great opportunity when you get to a certain point where most of your expenses in the vehicle has been paid, and you've done all of they've been making payments, $600 payments for the last 2 years, and where that leaves you to just continue the new. We've always been real advocates of trading someone in and at about the 2-year mark, but this is adding another layer, or an element.
So maybe it helps to back up and kind of talk through it as though if you were my customer, and thinking back to the dealership that I managed in Lease Here Pay Here, and the way we taught our people to approach this, and the way that I did it many times myself working with a customer, would be to say, let's say at the point of they're buying the car, we can say, here's the deal. You chose this car. You can put a certain amount of down payment of X. You're going to have a payment of Y, and it's going to be for, I'll use 24 months. It's going to be a 24-month lease term. And you're going to decide at the end of 2 years whether or not you want to keep the vehicle. It's a lease with an option to buy, so you don't have to decide about that right now. So for example, we can wait at the 2-year mark. We'll know kind of what your needs are. Your circumstances may change. You might want a different kind of vehicle at that point in time, so we can just decide about that part then. You don't have to feel the pressure of owning this car and paying for it for a very long time. So that really became a nice, easy way for us to get there. And I think for today, then you fast forward to now we're 22 months in my example. I realize a lot of dealers who would be listening are doing more like a 36-month term on their lease, and that's okay, whatever it is. It's just that all you're really doing is you're stacking that residual at a time based on your own strategy and at what point you want to recover the collateral if you are to trade the customer. But in this case, let's say we're at that 22-month mark, and it's time to notify the customer, hey, your residual is coming due, your lease term is coming to an end. It's time for us to get together and decide, what do you want to do? And then when we meet with the customer, it's like, how do you feel about the car? Is it treating you well? Is it still serving your needs? Do you want to keep it? If so, we just can set it up where your payments will remain the same, and you can keep making those payments until you own it. As I said, some people want to own it, like where they want to be without a car payment. They might want to own it. Others will say, you know what, this car's got some miles. I see that you've got that new, that new model out there. Are you saying you could trade me into that car with the same payment, and I wouldn't need much of a down payment? And if the answer is yes, then that's a pretty easy transition for a customer, and it's a win for me as a dealer. So this is the part that we have to work through that math, is for dealers to see what is the book value of that car at that point in time. What is the customer's outstanding balance? Obviously that's our residual if we're hitting the end of that lease term, and is our policy set up, and what this is really doing is sort of systematizing that process whereby we have that conversation. It sort of forces a conversation with the customer to let's talk about what you want to do. Do you want to trade? And then if you think about everything we just talked about, if I'm in a buy here, pay here structure, and I'm a 40-month buy here, pay here structure, now we're at 24 months or 30 months, I can have that conversation with a customer, say, hey, what do you want to do? But there's nothing contractually.
There's no urgency on their end. And that's actually one of the reasons why, taking it outside of the math, one of the reasons why I like this model is because it forces a conversation at about 2 years. And we've talked an awful lot about how much are we communicating with them, regardless of where they're at with on-time payments and all of that. Are we, because that we've taught that it's really important to keep those lines of communication open. So this is kind of a forced communication after about 2 years. Imagine when you get to that point and you've been in communication, you have a good relationship, you've maybe solved a few problems together, and then that conversation comes around where it's like it's time to make a choice. How much easier it is for the customer to make that choice to stay in the relationship, because if you're building relationships, and if your relationship really is the most important thing, everyone appreciates a relationship that they know that there's a level of trust and that it's like it's familiar. And that they know that it's almost like not just trusting, but you kind of like this this dealership because they've worked with you, they've communicated with you, and how easy that conversation now becomes,
Right.
rather than zero communication. And then you hit that time and they're like, well, you really don't care about me, so let's pay it off, or I'm just going to turn it in.
Right.
And I'm going to go look elsewhere because I
Sure.
saw this whatever vehicle. So it's just, I really do like this model for the built-in communication,
Right.
and the built-in kind of forcing a decision.
Yeah, and it also has an appropriate amount of pressure on me as the dealer to make sure the customer is satisfied at the end of that lease term and will want to continue. Because if I'm building my business, and I think this is among those things where we talk about the smaller the market we're in, the more important it can be for us to retain the customers that we win. And so if for us to earn them again, it's a little like if I can get a customer who's happy doing business with me, and I can provide them a solution that works well, and I can continue to kind of keep them in collateral. It's somebody said to me a long time ago, and this is a little bit oversimplified, but it's like, if the customer will keep me in a $600 car payment, I will keep them in a car. So it's a little like, the idea that I'm going to provide them wheels. And there's also a warranty consideration here because, in my own experience with the short-term lease with the option, we did have a warranty. So not only was the lease term coming to an end, but the warranty was coming to an end.
Which is beautiful.
Right.
It's another really, really great conversation, because if you've got a warranty and you've been able to communicate all the way through, they haven't had the issues that would normally take place. So it's like another one of those layers that when you have these layers of taking care of your customer, different things that may not be very expensive for them to do, but you start layering those things in, layering in the communication, it really becomes, you want this decision to be like, I'd be not very smart to not take this opportunity.
Well, and there's a lot of significant math here to consider, but I think in that scenario, when you say to the customer, hey, your lease term is coming up, it's time to decide if you want to keep the car. If you like the car, wonderful. We can always refinance it and keep your interest or keep your payments the same until you finish paying it off. And now we can also say to the customer, just remember, if you choose to continue making those payments, then now it will become your financial responsibility going forward. Doesn't mean we couldn't sell the customer service contract at that point in time for the remainder.
So you kind of, in a way, hope that you've had some kind of interaction around that warranty, that it saved their bacon, it saved your bacon. And then that becomes, it's like, remember the thing that happened, and the warranty took care of the thing. So this does make sense. It just
all kind of ties together. And so it really is an easy and natural way for us to, you say force a conversation, but it really does. Contractually, we have to sit with the customer and reach an understanding. What do we want to do? And we do have options. Years ago, leases were more, consumers were more vulnerable in a lease. And the way that leases are written now is in a Lease Here Pay Here environment, closed-in kind of lease, option to own, then it makes it easy to be able to have that conversation at the end of that lease term and be able to trade into another car. And I think dealers have to go back and do their own math. But I think most dealers would like to have, in our example today, we've used 24 months a lot, but imagine that car is going to have greater value. The car that we're bringing back in off the lease term is potentially going to have more value because of mileage and everything else. We would have a car that has value, and we can make it a wholesale retail determination. But we're basically putting the customer back in another car, renewing that term, keeping a good customer on the books, and keeping them. And now same thing. We just make another decision in 2 years' time. How do we feel about the car? By then we might have additional kids. We might need an SUV. Life can change. This just gives the customer a lot of flexibility, a lot of options, right?
Or the kids have grown up. They've got their own car. We don't need the big car. We can downsize.
Get away from the gas guzzler, which was a factor when we got these lease things. It was definitely looking at something that was cheaper on gas, depending on what was happening in the market at the time. So,
I would also, making that shift. I mean, obviously you're going to communicate that you're in a lease and that we're switching into a regular purchase. but you don't want there to be very much that changes for the consumer. So if they're going to continue making payments, that it's not something that's changed. It's pretty fluid that they're moving into this, or if they're trading it in, then it's just, come on in, choose your car. But making it, it's doing this too is, I think one of the keys is that it's if you continue, there's like no change.
Yeah.
I mean, you're just going to have to sign some papers or whatever. And again, if you've had a good relationship and they trust you and they recognize that you care and that you're there to help solve problems and all of those, no brainer. That just I know for me as a consumer outside of Buy Here Pay Here, but if I'm working with a dealership, even if it's a purchase and that if there is the warranty and they've worked with you and it's been a really good experience, and even something like that, like that, you get called in and say, hey, and I do though, that's the thing, is that when you buy from a dealership or whatever, they usually will reach out to you after a couple of years and say, hey, it's time for an upgrade or whatever. So and if you've had good experience, then gosh darn it, I really enjoyed the experience. I might try a different size or a different whatever. But
it is different when you've got that environment. Like it's one thing to send a customer a notice in a Buy Here Pay Here saying, would you like to trade, versus
it's time
for a conversation.
Yeah.
We got to decide.
Come on in for some popcorn or donuts or whatever, and we'll have a conversation about it. Bring the kids.
Way back when I first got in this business in the late 90s, I remember working with a trainer, and I liked the phrasing that he chose, or it's the approach that they brought. And back then they were doing pretty short-term notes, but I think everything that we're talking about here aligns philosophically. His approach was this, and keep in mind back then more customers made payments in person, but everything we're talking about here would still apply. It's just a question of how we have the conversation with the customer. But imagine that you have a customer that's been with you for some time. You have a great relationship with them. They've been good about their payments, whatever. And now one day they came in to make a payment. And so they got their $600 cash to make a payment or whatever. Maybe they're on the phone with a debit card, whatever. But if you could say to them, imagine the in-person aspect of this, to be able to say, hang on, instead of making that $600 payment today, keep that cash in your pocket for just a minute. Let me show you something. And they walk out and show them a car on the lot.
It's like your $600 could be your down.
What if this became your down payment? What if we were to use this as down payment? Isn't it smart?
It's so smart.
And so it kind of drives home the idea, the approach and the philosophy here that we really gain. And you can do it in that Buy Here Pay Here thing with that sort of approach.
Yeah, Buy Here Pay Here or Lease Here Pay Here, that type of thing works.
But it requires a little more kind of finesse, I guess, and technique in order to.
It also doesn't there isn't a forced conversation. It is more that you have to chase the customer to get them to have a conversation with you.
Yeah. But the premise is the same here, and I think what happens is, we get, and as I've always said, even if the warranty is expiring, customers, been in this car 2 years. Sometimes that car's got a little rattle in the back end, or one of the wheel bearings making a little bit of noise or whatever. And so the idea becomes kind of appealing. If I could trade this into a fresher, newer set of wheels with lower miles or whatever, then that can be appealing for them. So I think this whole conversation today was really just about, again, we were focused on Lease Here Pay Here because that's where the conversation had been most recently. But then looking at Buy Here Pay Here, we could bring the same approach. So
absolutely.
Yep. So we can wrap up there. Oh, just want a quick mention that for those folks who are interested in getting involved in our V8 dealer groups, we are really getting a lot of attention around that, and we're happy to fill some seats in V8 groups. I think our new report card that we rolled out has been really interesting and intriguing to a lot of dealers, and rightfully so. So if you're interested in becoming part of our peer groups, by all means, reach out. Let's get you in one of our V8 dealer groups. We meet virtually in the evenings. Yeah. So
right there.
Yeah. So we meet virtually in the evenings, and we're putting Lease Here Pay Here and Buy Here Pay Here dealers in the same groups and asking Lease Here Pay Here to kind of adapt their math to a Buy Here Pay Here structure, and that has gone well. We're making some important recent progress, and the letter grades have kind of sparked some of this. It lets us kind of see where the data isn't quite lining up with some dealers, and so it's been really informative, and so I think it's a great time to jump into a V8 dealer group with us. We'd love to have you in there.
And it's interesting. Just one quick comment about the letter grade system is, not all dealers are really data nerds. You know, that can look at a composite, and I know from your experience working with a 20 group or other, that there's just a lot of data, and then you have to be able to interpret that data, and have a conversation around it. This doesn't. The interpretation is like, okay, here is how we interpret. Here's where you stand. It's a way for a dealer who doesn't do a lot of deep data analysis to be able to look in a very holistic way at where their business is, and it's simpler. It's simpler for them to be able to see the different places where they could make some shifts. And I know you recently had a conversation with one of the dealers that has this, and they're like, okay, after I look at this a little bit more, I'm going to want you to help with, like, how do I get this
what is the one thing?
What's the one thing that I can do to raise this grade? And it's been fun to see the reaction.
And I told him that is the right question. So let's figure out which of these we need to focus on, and let's go to work on in the next 90 days.
Absolutely. And good morning, Karen.
Hi, Karen.
Karen's always watching, but she's creating a relationship. It is, and it's that $600 a month payment. All right, what else do we have?
That's
we
it.
Good?
We'll
okay.
Wrap up. We're gonna head back to home and get settled back there. We'll be back in our normal rhythm next week.
Yep.
So again, reach out if we can do something to help.
Yeah, and again, you can reach out to Jim directly if you're interested in V8. Please go to whitehatway.com, and there is a page there around V8. I'll give you some information, and there's a form you can fill out, and we'll give you a call back. All right, everybody. Thanks again so much for joining, and we will see you next Friday with another fun and exciting topic.
That's right.
We just won't be here.
Right.
Darn it. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks.